But I can assure you the Democrats aren't going to listen to her. Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. I really should get out of the habit of calling her AOC. She is Representative Ocasio-Cortez.
Foremost, I want to acknowledge,
and she deserves the utmost respect.
I acknowledge, first of all, just the really hard fight that a lot of our swing district members
She's
have.
AOC if I ever get the pleasure of playing with her on Twitch.
Republicans levied very effective rhetorical attacks against our party. That, I believe, is absolutely true. But I think one of the things that's very important is to realize that very effective Republican attacks are going to happen every cycle. And so the question is, how do we defend ourselves against that? If you look at some of these, some of the arguments that are being advanced, that defund the police hurt, or that arguments about socialism hurt, not a single member of Congress that I'm aware of campaigned on socialism or defunding the police in this general election. And these were largely slogans, or they were demands from activist groups that we saw in the largest uprising in American history around police brutality. And so the question that we have is, how can we build in a more effective democratic operation that is stronger and more resilient to Republican attacks? And I believe that there are many areas that we can point at in centralized democratic operations that are extraordinarily weak. For example, our digital campaigning is very weak. And this is an area where Republicans are actually quite strong. President Trump, he won the 2016.
Now, I am going to explain to you why their digital campaigning is weak. It's because they've got these apparatuses that already exist, where local TV stations make a shit ton of money off political advertising. I can tell you that for certain. Radio stations and TV stations love election time. And there are these strategists, campaign strategists, media people that give campaigns advice. And they love telling campaigns to spend money on TV advertising, which, by the way, all the data seems like it's pointing to is completely ineffective. So what AOC is talking about is countering the deluge of right-wing misinformation that's all over Facebook constantly. I don't know if she does it in this interview, but she pointed to a rep specifically that only spent $10,000 on Facebook in the last week. Spent all his money on TV ads. Barely pulled out a win.
Election, as we know, largely on digital organizing and strategy. And I believe that many Republicans were very effective at digital organizing and strategy as well, whereas the Democrats...
Digital organizing and door knocking.
Though it's 2005. And I know a lot of us don't want to
hear it. And it was door knocking that put Joe Biden over the edge.
Better. And then when we really dig down and refine our operations, we can be more resilient to these strong Republican attacks.
You told the New York Times that you almost didn't even run for re-election, in part because of treatment from your own party. You said, quote, it's the incoming, it's the stress, it's the violence, it's the lack of support from your own party. It's your own party thinking you're the enemy, unquote. Do you really think other Democrats see you as the enemy? Do you think Joe Biden...
Now remember, she is the number 3 fundraiser in the country. And one of the most shocking things about Representative Ocasio-Cortez is that she's more well known to Republicans than she is Democrats. Still.
Didn't see you that way?
Because Republicans have done a damn fine job of messaging and making her look like the enemy. You notice how Democrats never fucking do that?
I don't believe Joe Biden, I don't believe President Biden sees me that way, and I believe that that's actually one of the reasons why he won election. There's a marked difference between 2020 and 2016 in how the Democratic Party was able to unify, to Joe Biden's credit, before the election and get everyone on the same page to make sure that we vote Donald Trump out of office. That being said, there are, at least in the House caucus, very deep divisions within the party. And I believe that we need to really come together and not allow Republican narratives to tear us apart. You know, as you mentioned, we have a slimmer Democratic majority. It's going to be more important than ever for us to work together and not fight each other. And so when we kind of come out swinging, not 48 hours after Tuesday, when we don't even have solid data yet, pointing fingers and telling each other what to do, it deepens the division in the party, and it's irresponsible. It's irresponsible to pour gasoline on these already very delicate tensions in the party. So we can help. It's not saying that every member can...
And that's another thing that's just Democrats playing in to Republican messaging.
But it's to say that we have assets to offer the party that the party has not yet, you know, fully leaned into or exploited. And I believe that we can take some of these seats. You know, I think Katie Porter's an amazing example. Michael Levin. There are swing seats. Every single swing seat member that co-sponsored Medicare for All won their reelection.
Right.
And so the conversation's a little bit deeper than that, than just saying, you know, anything progressive is toxic and a losing message.
She's absolutely right. And should she decide to run in 2024, I'm all for it. But now here is Jim Clyburn, who more than likely cost Bernie Sanders the primary, with the machinations of the Democratic Party all coalescing behind Joe Biden right before Super Tuesday.
Let me get you to respond to something that Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez said in an interview this weekend. She said, the last 2 years have been pretty hostile. Externally, we've been winning. Externally, there's been a ton of support. But internally...
More than 100 members of the House Progressive Caucus now.
That was about how things have worked inside the Democratic Congress. How would you respond to her?
Well, you know, sometimes I have real problems trying to figure out what progressive means. You know, I tell people all the time, my father was very conservative. He was a minister. I never heard him ask his congregation to give conservatively. He always asked for a liberal offering. And so I believe that it's good to be conservative at times.
What the fuck does that even mean? You senile old fuck.
In many ways. But it's also good to be liberal at times in many ways.
Liberal when you're given to the God.
Now, some people refer to me as being moderate. I've been called conservative, and I've been called a flaming liberal. What would we call John Lewis? You know, anytime you challenge the status quo,
dead.
Looked upon as being liberal. No, you just want to be a part of what's going on in this great country, the country that you've helped to make great, and that's all this is. So I don't get hung up on labels. So I don't know what I am. I'm an American, a very proud American, right. And I'm a Democrat, a very proud Democrat. So I just want us to be.
I don't get hung up on labels, and I'm gonna go fucking throw out a couple. But hey, Clyburn mentions God. Well, apparently God is not happy with any of you fucks.